point out that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to start again, Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 620th edition of Energy Week with George Harvey and the astonishing Nancy Wolf.
Hello.
She doesn't have a comeback.
That's I know, okay. I don't have a comeback. I'm like, yes, hi.
Okay. This is Energy Week 620, which we're recording today on the 17th of April. It starts on the 10th of April and it goes to the 16th of April. And I've never figured out how a week can start on an even day and end on an even day and be 7 days. Actually, I did figure it out once. It took me a long while, but I did figure it out.
Excellent.
What?
Excellent. That's great.
Yeah. What we're doing is news aggregation, and the items that we're talking about are all bits of news that I posted on my blog, geoharvey.com. You can go there and click on the date of something if you want to read the article. By clicking on the date, you go to the date where there's 15 articles, usually, sometimes fewer. And you can find the article that you're looking for. Or you can go below, downward, to a thing that you can scroll down to. If you can scroll, not everybody can scroll. What can I say? Yeah. And if you do that, you come to a tiny URL, which is tiny URL and then various symbols. And then it says Energy Week 620. And you click on that, you come to what I call the script for the show, which is just the 21 articles for this show, although today there's 22. And we'll figure out how to deal with the odd one when the time comes.
When the time comes.
Okay,
Yes.
Should we start?
Yeah, let's start.
Let's start. We have a nice picture of renewable energy and an item from Clean Technica.
Yeah, so the headline on this one is Renewable Energy Still Alive and Kicking in the U.S.
Well, it's been under attack.
Yeah,
even with the efforts to prop up the U.S. coal industry, if that isn't a dead issue, I don't know what is. This is like betting on a dead horse in a race. It really is. Although in this case, the coal industry isn't dead. Maybe it's like betting on a horse that just broke its leg or whatever. I don't
Complicated horse.
A complicated horse. Renewable energy projects still attract global energy investors. The loss of federal support for renewables still stings, but at least the folk overseas still believe there's money to be made from clean energy in the United States. As they say, money talks.
Yep.
There's active operation to try to prevent clean energy from taking over.
Yeah.
And we talked last week about the fact that in the United States, over 90% of new energy being put online is renewable. Natural gas, and that, by the way, includes nuclear as non-renewable, natural gas plants are being put on in lower amounts than are being removed because they're old. So, where is the future in fossil fuels? The world is installing even more renewables than the United States. And the situation for fossil fuels, if I had a fossil fuel company and I was the CEO, I would be telling the stockholders, we've got to change to renewable energy. Mm-hmm. One of them has already done that.
Yep.
And already completed the change. That was Danish oil and natural gas. Now it's Ørsted, which is
Yeah.
doing almost
lot.
a lot in renewable energy. And they don't own any fossil fuel infrastructure at all anymore.
Because as we'll talk later in the show about volatility and how it's just not good business.
Volatility is bad business. That's
Yeah.
right. Chaos is bad business.
Bad business.
And a stability, a lack of chaos, stability is good for business. You can make plans.
Yep.
Okay, we should move on.
Yes.
We have an item from Renews
Yes.
and a picture, and I have no idea what this picture is of, except that it's some sort of marine energy activity.
Yeah. Well, so the headline in this one is Tidal Wave can deliver £8 billion boost to Scotland.
Okay, tidal stream and wave energy projects in the UK could deliver over £8 billion in economic benefits to the Scottish economy. It's not the UK economy, it's the Scottish economy.
Yep.
By 2050, according to a report from by the University of Edinburgh. The report presents a scenario with a Scottish market for up to 8.8 gigawatts of marine energy by 2050. And this, speaking of, stability, marine energy just goes on, or at least it has so far. Tidal energy is very important, and even if the Gulf Stream stopped altogether, which it might, tidal energy is just going to keep going.
I like this £8 billion in economic benefits to the Scottish economy.
Yeah.
I like that. That's good.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, should we go on?
Let us go on.
Okay, we have a picture here of construction of the Keystone Pipeline in 2009. Those are the pipes that carry the oil, which is not oil, it's crude oil from the tar sands, which is kind of like goo.
Yeah. This one is from ABC News, and the headline here is Cleanup Underway at the Keystone Oil Pipeline Spill in North Dakota.
When the Keystone Pipeline ruptured Tuesday, that would be a week ago Tuesday, in southeastern North Dakota, it was shut down within 2 minutes. This is amazing.
I think this is amazing too.
By an employee who heard a mechanical bang. South Bow, which manages the pipeline, South Bow is the name of the company, estimated the spill's volume at 3,500 barrels. I don't know how long it took this employee jumped to get this shut down, but it may have been, it took time to shut it down. And anyway, 3,500 barrels or 140,000 gallons. By the way, that amount of oil would take 29 tractor trailers to hold. That's the amount spilled.
Yeah.
And each gallon of the 147,000 gallons can contaminate 1 million gallons of water.
Wasn't there like a whole movement that was trying to stop this pipeline because it might have a spill and harm the environment around it?
Yes.
Okay, just checking.
And it was going through an Indian reservation, and the pipeline was, as I recall, going under a river, which supplied the Indian reservation with all of its drinking water.
Yes.
And this is just playing games with people,
No, it's like, can we, there is it's this sort of erasure, in my head, it's sort of this erasure of history in certain ways. It's like, wasn't there a whole movement that was saying you should not do this because of this? Same thing with all of these spills. There's a whole movement saying, oh, you shouldn't do this because there will be spills.
You hit it. All of these spills, they happen over and over again.
Over and over again.
They just happen.
Yeah.
I don't remember the number, but I remember going to Wikipedia several months ago to see about natural gas pipelines leaking.
Yeah.
And what I came across was that there was a major natural gas line leak. Maybe this included pipeline spills, but about every other month. These are major spills, and they spill like this one, hundreds of thousands of gallons of oil. And if this guy hadn't heard the bang, how many gallons would it have been?
I know it. It's like amazing. I mean, this is the dream scenario. That's
Yeah,
what I was thinking when I read this. This is the dream scenario of a spill. Someone immediately just calling in and saying, "All right, we got to move this thing along."
Yeah.
That's the dream scenario.
Yeah.
And that's the extent of the damage from a dream scenario.
When I was at Pratt Institute, which was my first year of college, there was a water main break under Washington Avenue, which is in Brooklyn. And it was a 60-inch water main. That's big. And it took 8 hours to shut the valve to close the leak down. If you can imagine that, and in that time, the water rushing out of the broken pipeline tore a hole in Washington Avenue that was about 100 yards long, and the full width of the avenue, swallowed cars, damaged a house. At least one house, and in this case, though this. Looking at that pipe, it looks to me like it's not as big as 60 inches, and I have no idea how much pressure was behind that.
Right.
But still, it might have taken quite a long time to shut the valve, turn the pumps off, and so forth. But the fact that this guy noticed this, heard it, jumped into work, and it's impressive. Okay.
Yeah.
We are up to Friday, April 11th, and we have an item from Renews. That item that I don't know if we mentioned it, but that item about the pipeline was from ABC News.
Yep.
This one coming up is from Renews, and the picture is the installation of a suction bucket jacket, which is SBJ foundation.
Yeah, so the headline here, as we just talked about, Ørsted installs first foundation at Changhua 2B and 4.
Ørsted has completed the installation of the suction bucket jacket foundation. It's hard for me to say that.
You're doing so great, though.
Oh, thank you so much. For the 920 megawatt Greater Changhua 2B and 4 offshore wind farms, that's two farms, Changhua 2B and Changhua 4, in Taiwan. The site is Ørsted's first in the Asia-Pacific region to use suction bucket jackets, which minimize both installation noise and seabed disturbance. It's interesting to me that they had enough interest in noise and disturbance of the seabed. They're looking out for mollusks here and fish and porpoises and whales.
Because as we talked about last week, biodiversity is extremely important for us to have a planet.
Yeah. You know, this reminds me of a movie that was done by John Wayne, and I don't remember who else, but he was playing a person who was important in the oil industry. And there was a point in the movie where there were a lot of people opposed to these offshore oil sites that he was managing. And somebody went to him and said, "We have a problem and we'd like your help." And he asked what the problem was. And the guy said something about the shrimp that were living near the oil rigs were attracting fish. And it's like, how do we get rid of these fish?
Wow. Okay.
But the point that I'm making is not that oil rigs are good in the Gulf, but that sometimes things like foundations of wind turbines and things like that can give an area enough diversity of landscape to improve the lives of animals that live there. I don't know. Anyway, we should go on.
Yeah.
The next picture is a picture of humans and robots working together, and this article comes from PV Magazine India.
Okay, so here's the headline. It's robots to work with humans to demonstrate solar module installation.
Okay, Rosendin, an electrical contracting company, has announced that its renewable energy group will demonstrate its new autonomous robotic system for installing solar modules in Texas. The robotic system reportedly can install solar modules 3 times as fast as human workers. And what's happening in this picture is that the robot is actually grabbing a hold of the solar panel and moving it to where it's going to be installed. And then the final installation is being done by human beings who do the wiring and the bolting and all the rest of that. But you know, that's an improvement. It's a safety improvement, among other things, but it's also time improvement. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay, we will go on to a long one that is actually 2 articles.
Yeah.
This is one article.
This is one. There's one yeah. So this one is from the BBC, and the title here is "Do we need cocoa-free chocolate, and is it nice?"
Okay, I'm opinionated on this. The key ingredient of chocolate is cocoa, which is made from fermented, roasted, and ground cacao beans. The cacao, by the way, is a legume, but it's a tree. Okay, the wholesale price, a lot of interesting things about legumes. That's a big family of plants, very valuable. The wholesale price of cocoa increased an astonishing 300% in 2024. This is due to climate change-related weather. Climate change, of course, is a socialist hoax from India.
Right, yes. Doesn't affect every aspect of life.
Okay. This is due to climate change-related weather impacts on cacao farms, particularly in West Africa. There are alternatives. Now, why did I say this was 2 articles? Because I have an article worth of notes here.
Yeah.
Cocoa offers several health benefits, including improving cardiovascular health, potentially lowering blood pressure and cholesterol, boosting mood, which anybody who has seen or read anything about Harry Potter would know, and because it helps people who have run afoul of dementors. Really, that's the first thing the nurse does, is give the person chocolate. It's also rich in antioxidants and can help reduce inflammation and improve brain function. And it improves insulin sensitivity, believe it or not. So if you have diabetes and you are benefited by this, a very small amount of chocolate on a regular basis can be useful. Okay? Also, shading cacao trees might improve production. However, if you go through the alternatives that are mentioned in this article, none of them has a list like that of health benefits.
Right. It's going to be an artificial.
They're not artificial, actually, for the most part. They're heavily processed.
That's what that's kind of what I mean. Is You'll get something.
Yeah. Carob is one thing that a lot of people are.
I know. I can't with that because of the having grown up with a parent who would go to the co-op, and carob was everything, and I could not stand it. And also I was lactose intolerant, and so it was just carob everywhere, all over the co-ops in the 90s, just carob. Oy vey.
Oy vey, yeah, oy vey.
So I am anti-carob.
You're lactose intolerant?
I'm not anymore. No.
Oh, you're not anymore. Interesting.
I trained my body when I went to Italy.
Oh. A lot of people think that lactose intolerant means milk tolerance is down. and it doesn't always. So a person who's lactose intolerant should be able to deal with most kinds of cheese. But anyway, we're up to Saturday, April 12th.
Yeah.
And we have a picture of wind turbines and an article from Straight Arrow News.
Yeah, so the headline on this one is Renewables beat fossil fuels for the first time in monthly U.S. energy generation.
Renewable energy sources generated more electricity than fossil fuels in the U.S. during March. Data released by the global energy think tank Ember shows this marks the first month on record where clean energy outpaced oil and gas in the nation's power supply. The same thing's happening internationally.
I know, but okay, monthly, as in this month, as in we're in 2025, and we have all of the cancellations of all of everything, and yet, because this was already put in, and yet because of that, we're still.
Yeah.
That's what impressed me so much about this, is that even with all of that, we're still monthly U.S. energy generation is beating fossil fuels.
It's going to be getting more common to have this happen as time goes by, because Donald Trump might want to increase the amount of coal we use, but there are no coal plants scheduled to be built. And you have to put them on schedule or they're not going to be built. And if you scheduled one today, it might or might not, and I think most probably might not, be constructed before he leaves office.
It definitely won't be before he leaves office. It takes way too long.
It takes too long. And, you know, I mean, we've had nuclear plants go in that took 40 years.
Yep.
And coal, you think people are going to say, yeah, I want a coal plant in my backyard.
Yeah.
Okay, now we've got a picture coming up that I really like.
Okay.
And this is from Trasporti. They're moving a blade. This is from Renews.
Yeah, I like this photo too. The headline on this is Geotrasporti totes delivery of 27 turbine blades.
Wind transport company Geotrasporti. From the name, I would think that they transport other things besides wind turbine blades.
Geo, like whole.
Yeah, they are. These are people, I would guess, who look at something, say, yeah, that's difficult. That's the kind of thing we can handle. Is toasting the successful delivery of 27 wind turbine blades for the Can you say it?
Let's see.
Mondanuovo wind farm in Italy owned by RWE. Geotrasporti said transporting wind blades is a complex operation due to their length, weight, and oversized dimensions.
Yeah, that's oversized. That is oversized. That seems big. I was looking, it's big.
It's big. It's 81 meters long, which is close to 300 feet. It's not 300 feet, but it's close. And that is for a 5.9 megawatt turbine. And they transported enough of those for 9 turbines. And the next thing they did was transport another 27. But if you look at that, I don't know how far off the ground the tip of that blade is, but it looks to me like it's got to be 6 or 8 stories.
Yeah, it's got to be, because you see, the flattened of those trailers, and you have to stack a number of those trailers on top of each other to get to the top of that blade.
Yeah, and I don't know how many.
Even the car.
Yeah,
for size.
This thing, and it is obviously, if this truck immediately takes a corner at this point, that blade is going to be, whipping over the trees.
Yes, it's going to be slicing off anything that it comes to contact with, probably.
It would, except that it's so far up in the air that
it's probably pretty secure, too.
And that trailer, I tried to count the axles on it, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't tell whether there were axles in places. Anyway, I think we should probably go to our next story.
Yeah, let's go to our next story.
This is the one with 2 parts.
Yep.
And we have a picture of a ship.
I mean, it's kind of, this story is also sort of throughout, there's more kind of touching on this too.
There's more, yeah.
Because this is a big one, which is, so this one is from BBC, and it's Global Breakthrough to Tackle Emissions from Shipping.
Countries agreed on a global deal to tackle shipping emissions after nearly 10 years of negotiations. The agreement covers the vast majority of world shipping, commercial shipping, and that means that starting in 2028, ship owners will have to use increasingly cleaner fuels or face fines. Now, however,
Clean Technica, we have UN shipping agreement, a victory for multilateralism, but a failure for the climate.
yeah, negotiators at the UN shipping body managed to clinch a deal that might save multinationalism for another day, but will likely lead to destruction of rainforests by promoting first-generation biofuels, according to TNE, the European Environmental Organization. So they're going to cut down forests to grow plants to fuel ships. Is that an improvement? Maybe.
Maybe, I don't, I mean, it's like, it's putting, again, it's like, it's putting the onus on the people who don't want that to happen to do something about it. But I mean, in the US, that's how it works. You sort of have to wait until something bad happens before you can protest it happening. Like, the crime has to be committed.
Yeah, unfortunately, we've got a government that...
Well, yes. That's yes. The comment is yes.
Yeah. Okay, should we move on?
Yeah, let's move on.
Okay, we have, we're up to Sunday, April 13th, and this is from The Investor.
Yeah, so our headline here is Chinese giant Envision Energy has its eyes on 2 wind power projects in Vietnam's Central Highlands.
This is interesting to me that China is building stuff, a Chinese company is building stuff in Vietnam. Those two countries have historically been rather hostile to each other.
Yeah.
Envision Energy Singapore PTE Ltd, Ltd is limited, I don't know what PTE is, has proposed developing 2 wind power projects with a total capacity of 200 megawatts in Lam Dong province as part of its parent company's billion-dollar wind power journey in Vietnam. So this is just part of a billion-dollar investment by one company that is Chinese in Vietnam. And
it's just money talks, money talks, money talks, money talks.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well.
Investment. Money.
Investment. I want to go to this next story.
Yeah.
This is an interesting picture. It reminds me very much of something that I saw from my mountaintop in New Hampshire, looking down the Connecticut River Valley. And I will tell you about it, but let's do the story first.
Yeah.
This is from the BBC.
Yeah, so how climate change is supercharging pollen allergies from the BBC.
In a warmer climate, seasonal allergy sufferers are hit with more pollen in a longer season, but they also have much worse allergy events, experts say. Thunderstorm asthma occurs when storms break up pollen molecules in the air, releasing proteins which make people suffer worse. So you've got a worse poison there.
Yeah.
That picture of the storm reminds me of from the mountaintop where I lived, near the mountaintop, but not actually on it. But looking out, I could see the Connecticut River Valley. And I remember looking over Northfield, Massachusetts. We had a very clear view of Northfield, Massachusetts, at a spherical thunderstorm. And the top of the cloud was not much more than a couple 100 feet higher than I was. And it was a little storm, kind of like this thing is, just a little spherical thing. And it would glow. The entire cloud would glow every 2 or 3 seconds from lightning strikes that I couldn't see. They were entirely enclosed. But there was, I should say, lightning reaching upward out of the storm. Blue lightning, almost like hair. And it was lots and lots of these little sparks of lightning continuously above this storm, like in this picture. If you look at this picture closely, you can see above that storm, there are stars in the sky.
Yeah.
And above the storm I saw was a clear sky, and right above the storm was the moon. So it looked like the storm was constantly reaching upwards toward the moon. And the sparks reaching upward were blue, in case anybody wonders. But that's weather from a mountaintop is very interesting a lot of the time. So we should move on.
Yeah, let's move on.
We have a picture of another pipeline. This is the transatlantic Alaska pipeline, and a story from ABC News.
Yeah, I have a comment on this one too. Market volatility complicates work for lawmakers in Alaska.
After President Donald Trump returned to office, Governor Mike Dunleavy of Alaska declared, quote, "Happy days are here again," end quote. And by the way, that is an old Democrat saying. But Trump's on-again, off-again tariffs made oil markets more volatile, compounding uncertainty for Alaska lawgivers whose budgets are based on the price of oil, which is constantly changing. Now, I want to hear what you've got to say.
Again, volatility equals bad. Like this is not helpful for governments. This is not helpful for businesses. If things are changing all the time, you cannot plan, and you have to be agile, and industry isn't usually agile.
Industry is not. Individual gamblers sometimes are.
Yes.
But that's how you make money on volatility, is gambling. And you can also lose money on volatility.
Yeah, it's not stable. So you're not, most people are not going to feel okay if everything is in chaos.
Yes, I'm reminded of a man in New Jersey, in a town that I used to live in, who was playing with commodities, the commodities market.
Yep.
And he signed a contract, which was a contract for potatoes. And he put off selling the contract until one day he got a call from a guy who said, "Where do you want these 6 truckloads of potatoes put?" He was not happy to have 6 truckloads of potatoes dumped on his lawn.
Yeah, that's a lot of potatoes.
That's like
no.
30,000 tons of potatoes. You know, well, a truckload is what, 60 tons? So it'd be 300 tons of potatoes. And he had a huge mound of potatoes that covered his entire property. At least that's what I was told.
Yeah.
Okay, we're up to Monday, April 14th.
Yep.
And we have a picture of ships in a port. And
this is Royal. I think this is kind of connected back in with the earlier story.
Yes, it is. Absolutely.
So International Maritime, this is from Clean Technica, and International Maritime Organization reaches agreement on shipping emissions.
After a decade of trying, the IMO, International Maritime Organization, agreed to a plan that it says will move the shipping industry toward net zero by 2050. I don't believe this plan is going to do that unaltered.
Also net zero, what?
Yeah. The heart of the plan is a levy of $380 per ton of CO2. That's a lot of money. That really is a lot of money. That ships will pay if they exceed maximum level of emissions. $380 per ton. Most people would have to pay that amount every other time they filled their gas tank for their ordinary car? This
Yeah.
is a lot of money.
Yep.
And, but I don't know. Do you have something to say about that?
It's just, again, it's like these, it's this sort of saying, well, it's going to be okay because we're doing this thing. And you're like, but you're only doing it that way because it serves you better to do it this way. That doesn't, like, it's not holistic, right? You're not thinking
holistic.
of the other stakeholders
Yes.
in this situation. You're only thinking about, well, it's a better deal for us if, we just curb emissions.
By the way, the United States did not sign this.
Yeah, well, they're not. They don't sign things anymore.
But,
you know that.
But this is like the United States is saying we're not going to participate. How are they going to not participate when they're dealing with ships engaged in international trade?
They just think, well, we'll just tariff them. That's fine.
Yeah. And they won't participate in ships that are not going international. So if you have a ship going from Anchorage, Alaska to New York City, I don't know, what would happen when they go through the Panama Canal? Well, maybe Trump's going to take over the Panama Canal. I don't know.
Right.
Okay. Our next item comes from Renewable Energy Magazine.
Yeah. And here we have our headline is Extreme Weather, Now a Global Threat to Insurability and Bankability of Renewables.
This is super important. Super important. Unmodeled extreme weather risks are emerging as a key challenge for renewable energy markets worldwide, raising concerns about long-term bankability and viability of clean energy projects as the industry expands, a new report finds. Now, the report was just about renewable energy projects and insurance. What doesn't it tell you? It doesn't tell you what happens to people's real estate property. And if you can't get renewable energy bankrolled because of insurance, well, you're not going to be able to sell property because of a lack of insurance, because you can't get a mortgage without insurance.
Yeah.
And by the time the renewable energy industry is hit by this, the real estate market is going to close. I mean, I just can't imagine it happening any other way. Anyway, we should probably move on.
Yeah, let's move on.
Is, okay, we've got something that's a little happier coming up.
So here we have from Renew Economy, Cubico doubles down on Queensland with another major wind and battery project.
Is that what we have?
Or maybe I am off. No, that's what I thought. Or did
Solving green hydrogen's water.
Okay, here we go. Yes, this is actually, the actual article is Solving Green Hydrogen's Water Woes with Seawater.
Yeah, I must say I really love doing the show with you.
It's very fun for me too.
It takes a lot of fresh water. That picture, by the way, is a solar plant, which is said in the picture to be floating, and I don't believe it for a minute. Those things look like they're on stands that are on the floor of whatever it is under them, and whatever it is under them looks to me like it might be a fish farm. But, the Chinese do that kind of thing. It takes a lot of fresh water to make green hydrogen, so that's the water, and that's water people need for other things like living.
Yep.
One alternative is to use seawater, but that's not easy. The leading Chinese energy firm Sinopec is among those exploring an alternative pathway that depends directly on seawater. Now, I want people to notice that what they're talking about making in a project like this is electricity that's going to make hydrogen out of seawater, which is a little bit of a problem because the seawater is loaded with salt. they may find a way to do that. A big question is that hydrogen actually useful for something? And there are a lot of people who assume that it is, but hydrogen has a lot of problems. And, it's one of those things. But it's an interesting picture, because one thing about this picture is if it turns out they can't make hydrogen and sell it, they can make electricity and sell it.
Yeah.
So it's not a bad deal.
Yeah.
Okay, we're up to Tuesday, the 15th of April. And we have an item from Renew Economy, which you've already started talking about.
Yeah, I already started. Cubico doubles, I'll remind our audience, Cubico doubles down on Queensland with another major wind and battery project.
Despite the new Queensland LNP government's about face on renewable energy, they just had an election and the Queensland government switched, which meant that instead of pushing hard on renewable energy, they're doing other things. Developer Cubico is doubling down on the state with a proposal of another major wind and battery project. It is a 720 megawatt wind farm with 200 megawatt hours of battery storage. That's a big wind farm. But the thing that's interesting to me is the Queensland government changes. They're going to take a different attitude toward energy. And Cubico just says, oh, by the way, we want to develop this. And it's not a whether you like it or not. It is more like, I think, if you pass this up, you're a bunch of idiots. There was something that happened several years ago in South Australia. South Australia had a terrible storm. Actually, it was South Australia, and the storm went into Victoria and New South Wales. It was a big storm, and
like 2017 or something.
Something like that.
Yeah, I think I remember reading about that.
And it tore down something like 20 big transmission towers. So people lost electricity for a long time, and a response by Elon Musk, who was doing one of his great acts, said, I will bet you, essentially, he didn't use that word, I will bet you that I can put in a 100 megawatt battery within 100 days of the time the contract is sold. And if I don't make it in that time, you get it for free. And Elon Musk is known for doing
random things, yes, random things.
Wild things.
Yeah.
And the government of South Australia took him up on it. The battery was built, and it was built in 97 days. So he got the money for delivering the battery. And within that time, 100 days, that battery went into use and saved South Australia millions of dollars. And I think it saved South Australia more money in the first year that it was functioning than it cost to build it, which is, 100% return plus is kind of good for
pretty good.
Well, the South Australian government lost the next election, and a conservative government came in, which meant that the government that came in was the Liberal government, because Liberal in Australia, everybody's standing on his head. Their feet are going in the opposite direction or something.
Yeah.
You know the term antipode? People on the other side of the world are standing upside down.
Right. Oh, right. Yeah. Yes.
Anyway, they have this thing where they had virtual power plants going in, and they had contracted for these. And this new government said, we're going to break those contracts. But when they got in and they saw what happened with the batteries, and they looked at the numbers from the contracts they wanted to kill, they decided not to kill them. And that conservative government that was in South Australia became very much in favor of renewable energy. And it's possible that that's what's going to happen in Queensland. So we don't know. Anyway, our next item is from Clean Technica, and we have a picture of a Tesla Model Y.
Yeah, so the Tesla Model Y and Model 3 continue to dominate U.S. EV market, but
Clean Technica just looked at overall EV sales in the United States for the first quarter, comparing 2025 with the previous 4 years. Overall, the sales trend is great. Sales of fully electric vehicles are up 200% from the first quarter of 2021. While Tesla still accounts for 43% of the market, it saw its share decline. Yep. It really didn't see an increase in sales. I think it saw a decline. It's hard to know what's happening with Teslas because they don't announce their sales figures.
Right. Or if they're using the right wash for... I won't go on. Yeah. They're extremely secretive. Extremely secretive. Yeah.
They're extremely secretive, except when Elon Musk decides he wants to say something.
Oh well, yes. Yeah.
And he has been taken to task for saying something.
Yes, he has.
I don't remember whether it was president. I think he was, or CEO. He lost one of those two positions because of something that he said. And the Securities and Exchange Commission said, you're not allowed to say that. And it's like, I don't care, it's your law, not mine. But that day is over. Okay, should we go on?
Yeah, let's go on.
Let's do it. This is from Clean Technica. We have an electrothon.
I know, an Electrothon America comes to Homestead, Miami Raceway.
I like that picture. It's kind of interesting to look at those vehicles because some of them are four-wheeled, some of them are three-wheeled. They look
kind of like go-karts.
They are go-karts. They're just powered by electric motors.
Yep.
Okay, Electrothon America provides participants hands-on ways to learn about STEM principles as they design. STEM is all science and math. Mm-hmm. As they design and build an EV for competition. Each contestant starts the race with the same amount of electric energy, and the winner is the car that goes the farthest in 1 hour. Yeah. I actually saw a go-kart contest in, I'm going to say I think it was Atchison, Kansas, in like 1950.
Okay.
And of course, it was orange crates on wheels, going down the hill. Yeah. It might not have been Atchison, but I have a feeling it was. It might have been someplace else. Anyway, we're up to April 16th, which is a Wednesday, and we have an item from Clean Technica and a pre-production 2026 Lyric V, which is a Cadillac.
Yeah, so GM and Mary Barra placed a $35 million bet on EVs.
Okay, GM is bringing compelling electric cars to market, like the Cadillac Lyric, Chevy Equinox EV, and Chevy Blazer EV. The new Chevy Bolt is nearing production, and the electric Hummer, Silverado, and Suburban will be on sale soon. GE is partnering with LG Energy Solution on a battery plant, and the title of this talked about $35 billion. This is not chump change.
No, it's not. And I think, GM partnering with LG on a battery plant, that's fantastic. I mean, that is the kind of thing that's what we're supposed to be doing.
That's right.
When you think about the problem with nuclear, is we don't have that's how you're supposed to do it. Come up with your source.
Yes.
Come up with that
right.
When you're making something. Come up with your source. Come have your trash situation figured out. Get this stuff figured out.
Yes.
Before you build. not after.
If we had a law that said you have to have a waste disposal system before you build a nuclear plant, how many nuclear plants would we have across the world?
Zero.
And we have thousands of tons of nuclear waste. And this nuclear waste, when it comes out of a reactor, is so radioactive that if you take one of the control rods, and there's many control rods in the reactor, if you took one of the control rods out, which you wouldn't do yourself, you'd have a machine do it for you. If you walked up to that control rod, don't touch it, just walk up to it, count to 100 and walk back, you're going to die. That's how bad it is. That's why it goes into a spent fuel pool. And then it stays in the spent fuel pool for years, and then it comes out and it's a little bit less radioactive. You know, it took me a long time to figure that out.
Yeah, and then you get your pondcrete. Oh, fun pondcrete.
Yeah.
I love myself a pondcrete.
The problem with these radioactive things is nuclear plants are extremely inefficient. They only use about 2% of their fuel.
Yeah,
and they use it in making electricity in a system that's 35% efficient. So they actually turn less than 1%, about 2/3% of their fuel into electricity. And that's the truth. I went through that with a nuclear engineer who said, "Oh, our plants are 35% efficiency," and I went through that explanation, and his response was, "Yeah, if you want to see it that way, that's right. The problem is that means that you have a lot of waste. Almost 100% of your fuel is waste."
Yep.
Now, when you have fission of uranium atom, when that happens, it doesn't break neatly into a couple of isotopes. It breaks into random numbers of random isotopes, and they're
which are unstable, very unstable.
Some of them have half-lives of less than 1/100th of a second, but they're unstable. They are just unstable. They have extremely short half-lives. Yeah. Most of them are less than 100 years, which is an extremely short half-life. And they throw out every kind of radioactive particle you can imagine. They're just not safe. Somebody in Italy wanted to come up with a way to say safe, nuclear waste becomes safe after X number of years. How do we do that? We say, okay, we're going to track, because this can be predicted, how long it's going to take for that radioactive fuel to become approximately as radioactive as the natural source of uranium, uranium ore. 6 million years.
Cool.
How long has human history been going on?
3 million?
3,000?
Right, 3,000. I'm sorry, the Earth. I was going to say the Earth for 3 million years. Okay, that's what I was going to say.
Human beings have been around for
like
maybe 3 million years, or our close ancestors. But human history goes back to Sumer, which might be, but Sumer is just a tiny place. It's not the world. We don't have history for the New World until after the Spanish arrived. And, how long can we have this stuff go on? Okay, I'm going to go to the next thing.
Yeah.
And we have a picture of the Wind of Hope. That is wind, W-I-N-D, not plural. This is the name of a ship.
Yeah.
And an article from Renews.
So more Ørsted. So Ørsted launches new SOV.
Yeah. Ørsted launched the Wind of Hope, which is now in use as its second service operation vessel, which is what an SOV is, at its German offshore wind farms in the North Sea, carrying out maintenance on the company's 337 wind turbines. The 64-meter-long Wind of Hope has accommodations for 90 service technicians and crew. And I looked up the the details on the ship, and that is what its builder said. And that ship, you can barely see it at the bow, but there's a red circle above the bow. That's a helicopter landing pad. There's also a vessel in one side, and I think it is, they have a little niche in one side of the ship. And it looks like it may be on the side we're looking at. But they have a little niche that has a very nice sized boat in it that they can put into the water so that people going to the wind turbines can go to the wind turbines. And they put these ships out with the idea that they're going to hang out in that offshore wind farm for a while, making sure that things are oiled and inspected and whatever else they have to do. 90 technicians and crew is a fair number of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Last one.
Yeah, last one.
We have an item here from WindTech International.
Yeah, so the headline here is renewable power generation to increase 84% by 2030.
How is Donald Trump going to be selling fossil fuels? Who's he going to sell it to?
26% of something.
But this means that you've got 16% of new 16. I'm sorry. No, I'm not reading that right. This means the amount of we're having renewable energy outpace in its production fossil fuels already, and it's going to increase by 84%. Fossil fuels are on their way out.
Yes.
Donald Trump should be selling things to historic buggy whip manufacturers. I mean, really, he's
Really, yeah.
What kind of market is this that he's going after? It's a market that is in decline. It's like he wants to move the United States into the Great Depression.
I was just thinking just now, maybe he wants to move us into, he definitely wants to move us into we want to move ourselves into the Cold War, but it's definitely, there's also there is some feeling of a Cold War aspect to it completely as well, but.
He's going to lose.
Yes,
I don't see how he can win. He's trying to sell he's trying to sell fossil fuels to a world.
He's a used car salesman.
Selling used cars to people who are buying something else.
Yep.
We've got magic carpets and he's selling us used cars. It doesn't work. Obviously, we don't have magic carpets, but that's what the used car salesman would be up against.
Yeah, he's just selling a lie.
Yeah.
And he's very good at PR, and that's what he does.
Well, I'm starting to think that he's falling apart now.
He might be.
The stuff that he's done in the last week is astonishing.
Yeah. Yes.
This business of rounding people up, not giving them their due process, exporting them, and now he says he's going to export American citizens to countries that can't return people. And if he does that with or without due process, it is unconscionable. Anyway, we're done.
We're done.
Okay. Our last picture is have a gloriously unimposing week.
Good. That sounds great to me.
Well, this is like fantastically relaxing, or
just not volatile, just stable.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, and everybody, a wave to you, and we hope you come back.
See you next week.
See you next week.